Question number 1. The Blazers. They won 49 games this season, third most of any team in the Western Conference, 8 wins more than last season. But the playoff result, the same. Another sweep. Do you consider this season a success?
No. There's no way you can consider what happened this year a success. And it's strictly because of how that playoff series went down. Like we said, even if that had been a competitive 7-game series, maybe 1 or 2 of us would be saying, yeah, this was still a pretty successful season. They won more games in the regular season. They were more competitive in the postseason. That's another step, towards this rebuild, this 5-year rebuild Neil Olshey keeps talking about. But instead, it was the same exact outcome we had seen previously, except for it wasn't to a team who's going to end up being the NBA champions. Right. It was to a lower-tier team below, when I say lower tier, below the Warriors in the Western Conference. And that's just infuriating for Blazers fans. They were promised progress, and it looked like they were getting it throughout the regular season. But then the team kind of slumped in the last 10 to 15 games of the year, and that slump continued into the postseason, where frankly they were embarrassed in that playoff series.
Yeah, if you're being honest, I don't see how you could call the season as a whole a success. And they go hand in hand. You can't separate the regular season and the playoffs. They're all part of the same. The way I've thought about it is, now my son, my high school sophomore son, is a good student, so I'm not saying he's a bad student with this analogy. But what if my son, took a geometry class, and during the trimester he worked really hard, and he performed well during the trimester. And as the trimester's winding to a close, he's got a solid B+ in the class. And then he goes and bombs the final. I'm talking 20%, 30% on the final, ends up with a D in the class. If he comes to me and says, "Dad, I worked really hard, I just did bad on the final," no, that's not a successful trimester. The final means more. It's worth more. And that's the way the playoffs are, because they mean a lot more. It may be only 4 games versus the 82 games in the regular season, but the playoffs mean so much more than that regular season. And so what happened in the playoffs completely changes how you view the regular season. And I don't think you can call it a success.
And I mean, players on this team, obviously Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum included, have talked about earning respect throughout the league, and how the only way they're going to do that is get 50-win seasons and win in the postseason. They don't shy away from that conversation. In fact, they bring it up often in conversations. And so they know they're going to be evaluated, their success, on postseason accomplishments. And now, for 3 straight series, there's been none for the Blazers, and they've only won 1 game in those 3 series. Granted, 2 of them were against the Warriors, but the result is the same, and we need to see some progress. And as infuriating as it is for fans, Damian Lillard, I guarantee, took this to heart. When asked in the exit interviews, what are you going to remember this season for, he started talking about the postseason first before the regular season. This is going to stick with them for a long time.
And at the end of last season, and at the beginning of this season, and through the season, they talked a lot about how they needed to get off to a better start, have a better regular season record, beat the teams they're supposed to beat, so that they could avoid a first-round matchup with a team like the Warriors, or this season the Rockets. They did that, and that's great, but then they get the 3 seed, they get into the playoffs, and the result is exactly the same. They weren't competitive. I mean, they were kind of competitive in the first 2 games, but overall, in that first-round sweep, they weren't competitive against the Pelicans.
How misleading was that 13-game win streak? Do you feel a certain way because of that? Because if we look back at the big picture of it, and we said, what if they were to win 49 games? What if they were a 3 seed in the West at the beginning of this? I mean, I would have laughed. Thinking about that.
If that's all you ask.
If that's all you ask.
But if you said, what if they were a 3 seed and got 49 wins, and then they get swept by the 6 seed in the first round, you'd be like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
So what do you think about that win streak?
I mean, what that win streak did was it raised the expectations for this team. It totally changed what to expect in the postseason from this team. And to a bit, I think we're all fooled by that. I mean, that 13-game winning streak, as we look back on now, was not indicative of who this team was this season. After that winning streak, they finished the regular season 5-7, and then they get swept in the postseason. So I think we all got fooled a little bit by that winning streak. They were playing really well, but it obviously wasn't sustainable.
And that's my point with the question.
Yeah.
That's what changed everything for me in this season. I think that's why Blazers fans are so hurt by this.
Yeah.
Is because you got taken to a new place.
Yeah.
You thought this was the time when the team would turn the corner. Instead, we got the same old story, another sweep, another first-round exit, just false promises that you thought in your head that this could be the year that we see something, or at least progress towards something special. Instead, what are we talking about? We're trying to blow up the roster. We're trying to fire somebody. It's just crazy. And so I feel for Blazers fans that had to ride this wave, and it just breaks right at the shore. Like, and in a week, you're in and out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
When
What a
you
bummer.
look back at the season now, you see that 13-game winning streak, and that was fun, and you're going to
Wasn't it?
remember how fun that was.
Yeah.
But if you look at the team before the winning streak, they were a little bit better than 500. If you look at the team after the winning streak, I think they were a little bit worse than 500.
They were worse than 500.
And then they get swept in the playoffs. So, which team is the real Blazers team? It's not the team that we saw during the 13-game winning streak. We have to be honest about what this team is. And the front office has to be honest about what they are, too.